Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Today we will be having a closer look at the Rimalti RM88109. I unboxed this along with 3 others while the AliExpress summer sale was happening. Now this watch is by far my favorite of the 4, which I briefly showed you in that video. Now there's only one reason for this. It's because of the watch it is homaging. This is based on the Grand Seiko 44GS style case with dimensions closer to that of the Heritage Edition. Yes, it is a small watch, but I feel dressy watches with high levels of detail and finishing look better in a much smaller diameter. So I'll put up the specifications and dimensions on screen. Now regarding specifications, there's nothing extra special. It's a standard we get from AliExpress, AR coated sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance with a screw down crown and a case back, and running the boring but ever reliable Seiko NH35 movement. Now this watch is all about the details and finishing, and it is astonishing what brands like Rimalti can give us all for £160. Now this watch is available in 5 fantastic colours. You've got a red dial, the blue that you see in hand, a white dial with a blued seconds hand, you've got black, and you've also got a dark green with gilt markers and hands, and all of them look equally stunning. Now usually with most watches there is a certain feature or a certain part which draws your attention more than any other part of the watch. Now I feel with this watch initially you're drawn to that dial, but very quickly every part of the watch begs attention. It's something that has to be seen in hand. The high definition finishing on offer here is ridiculous. So let's start off at the dial. It's a guilloche sunray dial with rich coloration. The light interaction is unreal on this. Under dull lighting it's a bluey grey dial, but under direct sunlight it comes across a more vibrant blue. And the closest thing I can think of to compare this with is that Presage Cocktail Time dial. It's got very similar hues on offer. And the reason for this is the combination of the guilloche and the sunray, and you could look at this dial all day long. Now once you get past the effect of the dial, you start honing in on the micro details. So let's start off at the hour markers. All have been applied and machined with 5 facets, with 4 of them being polished and the A face being brushed. Now these are the details which I really enjoy having on watches. The markers are crisp and without fault. You've also got a polished applied Rimalti logo, which I think would have been more visible if it was brushed, but it does fit the polished details. You've also got a beveled date window with polished outer and blasted inner. And then when we move on to the handset, it's the sharpest handset you will ever see. It's got coarse linear brushing down the center across the taper, followed by a very thin and highly polished edges, giving you the knife edge effect. You've got very good length and proportion in comparison to the dial. Now we do have one major concern here, and it's regarding the quality of this dial. Something seems to have escaped the QC process, and hopefully I can get some to pinpoint this to you right now. If you take a look at the 12 o'clock marker, you can see it's slightly off center. It's been rotated a couple of degrees where it doesn't actually sit perfectly straight. Now this is the unfortunate problem with places like AliExpress and brands like Rimalti. You know, the QC process, this is where your cost saving is gonna really suffer. So while you get such incredible creation, detailing, polishing and manufacturing, but the all-important QC process is neglected. So I've got to interrupt the video here. So after I made the initial review, I did get back in touch with Rimalti. I sent him a picture of the dial. I let him know my problem. And of course, it's very easy to see in the picture that that 12 o'clock marker is off center. And I'm making this just to show how easy sometimes it is to get in touch with the AliExpress sellers, let them know your problem. And if you speak nice and easy with them, I get it, everyone can make this mistake, then usually they are more than willing to help. So Rimalti did offer sending me out another one, and at which point I opted for a different color because why not? I was going to mod this one anyway. And this is the black dial version, just to look at something slightly understated, with the same beautiful dial. So you get to also have a look at the black dial, and you can see the marker here at the 12 o'clock is much better. I think that's actually perfectly central now, but in comparison to the blue one, you can tell that was clearly off. So it's good to see it's not a problem across all the dial colors. And when you do order, just make sure you ask them to check or ask for a picture of the actual watch they're sending to make sure it is lined up. So there you go, a bit of resolution there, and back to the video. Now, aside from that, let's assume this was a perfect quality watch. Once you get your head around the dial, you can move on to the case. Now, I love the flared outsides of the case. Even though it is homaging the 44GS case, you do get aspects of the older King Seiko case which makes this watch look awesome. The wide flanks are mirror polished, the same as the thin bezel around the case, and you can see that polishing is just mirror perfect. Now, to break up all the polishing, you do get a center satin brush stripe with a flawless transition. You can see how crisp that transition is between the polished surface and the brush surface. Now, one thing I really love is that beveled underside of the case. This is a very rare feature on cases. You don't see this often, but this is what gives the case so much comfort. Now, the complexity of the case is one thing, but to see it finished to such a high degree is absolutely jaw-dropping. Now, the case back is an exhibition case back, and it's plain around the edge with no writing on there, no signage. Through the case back, you can see the NH35, and it would have been nice to see a decorated aftermarket rotor, but this is what we have, a nice plain one. You've also got a small but proportionate crown, which does have quite nice threading. Now, finally, when we move on to the bracelet, again, we're faced with so much detail. You've got male end links followed by a 5-link design. You've got polished shoulders to those center links, and all the links are faceted. Satin brushing in a very consistent grain, really matching up well with the rest of the case in terms of quality. You do have screw-in links and a fold-over milled clasp. You have polished bevels on the clasp and a brushed center, which is consistent with the bracelet. Now, the bracelet is really well executed. It does feel part of the watch. It also is somewhat accurate to the watch it is homaging. Now, you have probably noticed that the case, the clasp, and the case back are sterile, and personally, I don't see this as an issue. Rimalti also sell these cases with the bracelet for modding, and I would say it's worth buying the whole thing. You get the bonus of a really high quality handset and a movement plus the stem in the crown, so it's definitely worthwhile if you want to create your own. Now, one of the reasons why I'm not too put off or too angry about that off-center marker, because this watch I will use to modify it with one of my own dials I've got in stock, and I'll choose to keep this because I think the case, the bracelet, and everything about it, it just is so good, and I don't have something as good as this, for what this is in my collection. Now, on wrist, as I said, I do love these small dress watches, and with this much detail on offer, it fits so amazingly well on my 6.5-inch wrist. The 36.5mm diameter sits dead center, and the male end links have zero impact on the wearability, as it's only 43mm without the male end links, and overall it just sits at around 46.5. So you do have also 18mm lug width, and the 18mm lug width on the bracelet really complements the case perfectly. So with everything shining, glistening, the light bouncing off every facet and polished detail, this watch is a definite stunner on wrist. I wouldn't blame you if you bought a couple of different dials or modded a bunch of these watches, because this is probably the best GS dress / sports watch homage to ever come out of China. But as always, with the majority of AliExpress stuff, just keep an eye on the QC. And if you do get one with a big problem like this, make sure to follow the returns process. Now, over to you guys. Drop your thoughts and comments below, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.